Lee Goodman, I have been waiting for this forever. How are you?
I also have been waiting for this.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to complain, although I really could.
Go ahead. I'll listen.
I want to just get right into it. I asked you to be on this at this particular time because of the continual assault, although much more subtle now, on migrants in this country. And as someone who has been working so deeply in that work all over the country, I want to hear right off the bat from you how you're feeling about that.
I think subtle is the important word for the moment. And I say that because this changes day by day. We saw here in the Chicago area, Greg Bovino coming in and acting like a great big blustering bully and crashing down doors and doing all sorts of awful things for the cameras. And we've also seen moments where it's all being done very quietly and you wouldn't even know that it was happening. We've seen around the country the same sort of thing, where sometimes it's all over the news and sometimes it's as if it stopped. So it's going on all over the country still at a slightly decreased rate, so far as we can tell from the numbers of detentions and arrests and deportations and flights, et cetera, the other things we follow. But still, it continues to go on. And there's no indication that this administration or whatever follows this administration, if it's still a Republican-controlled Congress, will change in any significant way. So the struggle continues.
And so I know they both worry you, but which worries you more, the Bovino type of bravado or the subtle type we're seeing now?
Well, the Bovino type of approach of making everything big and spectacular gets a pushback, and it gets the press to pay attention. And it did, I believe, result in a significant shift in public opinion about migrants and in immigration and border enforcement. So it's awful to experience, but the big picture is it allows us to get a message across. The quieter approach that no one noticed makes it very difficult. And there are those, I think, in the administration who realize that, and they will continue this way, just as prior Democratic administrations have continued this way and got very little attention.
So you've gone all over the country shouting your message, being quiet and subtle about your message.
I'm not shouting, Bruce.
I was being proverbial, I know. Talk to me, first of all, about all the places you've been. Which one has moved you the most?
Well, that's a tough question. There have been elements in each of the places I've been that have moved me. So off the top of my head, at one point, standing on the banks of the Rio Grande River, I saw 4 people trudging along the banks of the river who could not get into our country because it had been walled off with row upon row of razor wire, barbed wire. And among the people was a woman who was obviously quite pregnant. And they got to the point in the river across from where I was standing with others. We were on the Mexican side looking at the American presence. And the border guards came to the gate, which they used in order to access the river, and clearly would not let the people in. And just this group, including the pregnant woman, had to just keep trudging down the river with whatever hope they had at some point that they would get in or that something good would happen in their lives. That was pretty darn impactful. On the other hand, I've stood outside of the Bean in Chicago or the Sox Park or Cubs Park or all sorts of places in Chicago and other places where nothing like that is seen, but where people come up to me and tell me their stories. And people have told me all kinds of stories about family members who survived the Holocaust or survived other oppression. And that's deeply moving too. So at any place where we are, I find that if I'm available to listen to people, if I show that that I am there and willing to listen, people will speak out, and that has a terrific impact on me.
So it's why? So both of those instances, why do those move you so much?
Because it's people and it's their suffering and it's their stories, and it brings into my mind the real meaning of what we tend to think of as just government policy or sort of an abstract thing. It makes it real.
And you were wearing the outfit that you wear at all these times when you were having these interactions?
No, when I was down at the border, I was dressed like anyone else might be. The outfit you're referring to is I do sometimes when I go out demonstrating, wearing a replica of a World War II era Nazi concentration camp prisoner's uniform. And I have on the jacket a patch, which is a blue triangle, similar to the one we're seeing here. And I do that because every group who was imprisoned in the Nazi camps was identified by a color-coded triangle. Jews, of course, were yellow. Jehovah's Witnesses were purple. And migrants wore blue triangles. So I go out sometimes dressed in this replica uniform. And that's one of the things that brings people towards me, also whatever particular sign I happen to be carrying.
And when people come towards you, they come towards you in what way? You've had people who have spilled their stories to you.
Yeah.
Have you had other folks come as well? You and I, when we've talked about this, we know that some people have reacted very differently.
A very, very small minority are angry, but that's true no matter what I'm wearing. If you're out demonstrating for any cause in this country, there's going to be some people who will come up to your face and either swear at you or tell you that you're wrong or try and start an argument. And it's the same way when I'm wearing this uniform. So I don't particularly concern myself with those people. I always try and listen to them and engage them. It's usually almost impossible to do because they're there to yell at me. But the uniform actually brings about an overwhelmingly positive, sympathetic reaction. Now, some people come up very, very quietly when they've got stories to tell about their families who were survivors. They want a private conversation with me. And that's a wonderful thing to have.
What did it feel like the first time you put it on?
Well, it was hard to do. It hung in my closet literally for years. I put it together. It's a replica. I put it together and I didn't feel it was quite the right time to wear it. But then when Trump came back into office and we saw immediately how he was implementing policies in an extremely harsh manner, I screwed up my courage and it was tough. It was hard because I knew that I had a responsibility. So for instance, when I go out wearing this, I try very hard not to ever be photographed smiling. If I see friends who are out there, I'm happy to greet them, but I try not to be smiling because I don't think it's an appropriate image.
And where was the first place you wore it?
Frankly, I can't remember. Probably somewhere in Chicago. I went to a lot of the, as I mentioned, a lot of the tourist destinations. I've been in a lot of places. I don't recall what the first one was.
You went down to the Texas legislature, the 3 days every 17 years that they're in session, right? What does they meet like for 2 weeks every 2 years? Is that what it is?
There's a number of legislatures around the country that don't meet all that often.
So you went down there during that. Why did you go there and what happened? Well,
it was the annual Day of Remembrance that the Japanese American community across the country holds, similar to Holocaust Remembrance Days. And I joined in with some people and some legislators in the rotunda of the Capitol to link together the remembrance of when our country put people in concentration camps across the country during World War II, and what we're doing right now to migrants in camps all across the country.
How do you respond to when people say, how dare you call them concentration camps? How do you get away with that? What's your rationale for calling what's going on right now? Because doesn't that conjure up Holocaust?
Well, it should conjure up not just Holocaust, but other instances. Like I say, when we put people in concentration camps, when the British put people in concentration camps going back to the Boer War, when the Spanish put people in concentration camps in Cuba during the Spanish-American War, when the people were put in concentration camps by the Russians in the gulags. It's not just a Jewish experience. It just happens that the Jewish experience during World War II is the one that is most well known right now. As far as how I get away with it, I don't always get away with it. Some people don't like it, but it's an important comparison to make. And what I do is I look at the similarities between our camps today and the camps back then. And to me, there are really two key things to look at. The first is intent. Why are we doing it? The Nazis put people in concentration camps to isolate them and ultimately eliminate many of them. And they did it on the basis of national origin and political beliefs and religious beliefs. And that's very much what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Many people concentrate on the conditions of the camp. I don't think that's quite as important because there's some awful prisons around the country and around the world. But what is important is how do people get there? And in this country, everyone gets due process. You get to have a lawyer, you get to have a trial, you get all the things that go along with that, you get to have an appeal. And it's a long, involved process. It takes a long time. Some people don't like that it takes so long. But you don't end up sitting in prison without that, and you don't get an indefinite sentence, meaning you never know if you'll ever get out. With the concentration camps, both in Germany and these other places and in our country right now, there is no due process. People are thrown in, they never have a chance to prove whether they're innocent or guilty because they're not really charged with anything, and they don't know if they'll ever get out alive or in any fashion. So there are very, very, my looking at it, if you, the scholars who study these things, what I think most people would consider authoritative experts, they're calling these concentration camps now. They didn't a short while ago, but as it's become clear what our country's doing, more and more you're going to hear that terminology.
Okay, so lots of people care about it. I care about it, but we're not doing what you're doing. Why are you? What's this about? Why are you doing this?
Well, actually, you and I did this together quite a few years ago. We did, if you recall, go down to the border and take a look at the Tornillo detention center where they were imprisoning kids. And we did protest down there. So I take issue with your statement that we're not doing anything about it. We went down with a group from the congregation. There are people from all over the country who are working on this issue. And it's really encouraging that it's not just the people who are necessarily affected. It's not just migrants and families of migrants, or even people of certain national origins. People from all over the country are involved in this work right now.
Oh, well, thanks for deflecting the question. I'm going to put it back on you. The real emphasis of that question was, why are you doing this? What's it to you?
You know what happens when I ask my rabbi a question? He usually turns it back on me. So I'm going to turn it back on you, Bruce.
Lee,
say, why do you do this work?
I love you. I love you. I love you. You are one of the few people in my life that I will follow almost anywhere.
Now you deflected. You didn't answer my question. Why do you do this work?
With you because I'll answer. I promise I'll come back and answer. But I really want to hear what's driving you to do this. It's beautiful and it's challenging and it's what are you doing?
Over the years, I've worked on different issues. And for me, there isn't an issue that I felt I had to work on because I was going to be the victim of the policy. I've been very fortunate. I was born into a race and a color and economic status and all the rest of that I have not, that I can recall in my life in a very long time, felt I was threatened. So I get to choose what issues to be involved in. And I try to choose issues where I think I am needed and I can have an impact. And this is an issue where it's been a difficult issue for a long time for people to get involved in because there has been so much not just migrant feeling, but racial feelings in this country against people from Mexico, against people from Central America, against people from Africa. That one's been around a long time. There's been so much of it that the voices around the country and in Congress where they set these policies we're quiet for quite a long time. And I felt like I could be useful.
So I asked you to come on here after hearing you at Friday night talk about going down to Alligator Alcatraz. Will you talk about that experience a little bit? Why you went down there, what happened, what it looked like, etc.?
I went down to be with a group of people who I've been working with for a number of years. It's called Witness at the Border. And we show up at various locations, initially at the border in the detention centers, and to demonstrate, to talk, to try and get the story out. And our basic operation is we try and observe, we make as permanent a presence as we can. So in this instance, we were down outside the gates of this detention center or concentration camp for a week. And we learn what we can learn, and then we try and spread the word out to not just activists, but to the press and the general public. And we got lucky this time because while we were standing there, one of the prison guards got fired. And he walked out and he was mad. And he actually stopped to talk to us, which they usually don't do because they're told not to, and they don't have much use for us. And we saw on his shoulder a patch like you'd see on a police officer or an army uniform. And he actually took it off, ripped it off, and gave it to us. And this is a picture of it on the screen. And what was remarkable about it was the imagery of the death's head, which was the imagery that the Nazi SS used on their uniforms and on their hats and their shoulders when they were guarding the Nazi concentration camps. And the thought that our government would let this guy, when he's in charge of people's lives, he was guarding prisoners, let him wear Nazi imagery like this was just appalling and shocking. And as far as I know, it hadn't been revealed anywhere else. And I happen to know that if you work in a prison or in any police department or military, there's very strict regulations about what your uniform is. No suburban police officer in our area would be on the force for very long if he had a swastika on his uniform or a death's head. But this guy and his friends were wearing these patches, as far as we know, indefinitely, and no one told them to stop. And to me, an administration that lets this happen essentially is saying, you go ahead and you terrorize the people who are in your custody. And we did contact the press, and they did verify with people who'd been inside this particular prison that they were terrified by these people and by this imagery. That the administration would let this happen was astounding. So we got the word out as well as we could.
We've heard from people, you've heard from people that have been in there?
I didn't, but the reporter did, verified it. Yes. And so far as we know, they're still wearing these on their uniforms. No one from the administration has ever denied it, and no one ever said, we'll stop it.
Didn't the judge shut down Alligator Alcatraz?
Yeah, a judge did rule that it had to close down, but it went on appeal and it never closed. And we found down there that most people thought it had been closed a long time ago. But it's got, we don't know how many people because they won't tell us, they won't let us find out. But the best word we can get is probably about 1,400 people when I was there a few weeks ago, and probably a similar number right now.
You write a lot online about what you're experiencing. And I have been told in the few times that I've seen it, because you know I'm not on anymore, that you get it shared quite a bit and you have quite a lot of people that read you now. What kind of response do you get from that? And what do you see as the impact of you doing this? What is it?
The posts that get the most response are basically first person reporting, where I say, I was here and someone told me the story, I was there and I saw this. And the response that I get is people mostly say, thank you for telling us, because we get certain news, but reporters can't stand outside of a concentration camp for a week. So they hadn't gotten this particular story, or they don't necessarily have people come up to them who come up to me. So essentially people are grateful to have the information, because as we know, any particular news item that does get in the news, if it's a decent sized news outlet, the administration is going to come up with an alternate story. And for whatever reason, the people who read me believe me and trust what I'm reporting. So essentially what I get is people saying, we're glad to know what you're telling us.
Tell me about growing up. You grew up in a strong Jewish household?
Oh, I'm not going to talk about personal things, Bruce.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what brought you here.
Yeah,
Like
I don't know.
the Jewish self of you. What that's where I was going with that is. Did you grow up with a strong sense of Jewish identity and values? And is that part of what's driving you, or is it something else?
Well, I sang in the choir every Saturday morning at our synagogue, and I went through religious school, and I was bar mitzvahed, and so and we did the observances of the holy days and the holidays at home. I'm hesitant to say that's a strong Jewish background because someone else thinks, oh, that's nothing. So it's we happen to belong to a faith that allows people to practice in many different ways, and it allows us, unfortunately, to be very critical of each other. I got to think that was somewhat formative because I was in the choir. I had to sit and listen to the sermons every week, and you know what listening to sermons can do to a person.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I have to listen to myself. It makes me sleep. But go ahead. Anyhow,
but
go ahead.
but I don't look at it as being a result of my Jewish upbringing, primarily because there are people doing the work who are of Christian upbringing of all denominations, who are of Muslim upbringing, and their motivations and their way of doing things is very similar to mine. So I guess I would say I have something in me that speaks to responsibility and speaks to being part of a society. And I think to me, Judaism speaks to that, but so do all sorts of other faiths. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, amen. You spent a lot of time, or a good amount of time, going to other houses of worship from other faith traditions as well. Why?
I enjoy them. People who go to church go there because they need to be there, I believe. And for the same reason that people go to our congregation, because they need to be there. It's some because they want to be there, but I think it's deeper than that. I think there's some, at some level, they need to be there. And the reason that people need, what's behind people's need is the same regardless of what faith they belong to, I believe. And so I feel welcome every house of worship that I've been in. And like you said, I've been to quite a few of them. I just love being with people who are there in need and whose response to their need is to be with other people who are in need.
Do you like people?
Some.
In general, do you like people?
Some.
So that doesn't mean most.
I haven't met most people.
Well, I asked that question based on this need and the opportunity to interact with people, is that when you see the trajectory of our country right now, of our society, and everything that you've been engaged with, whether it was the gun prevention stuff, the migrants, anything you've been involved with, there's this side of humanity that, right, is so destructive towards each other, and this other side that's so nurturing. And which way do you think we're leaning?
I don't think there's any way of saying.
What's your gut telling you?
My gut telling me is this is a moment in time, and I can't predict in what direction it's going, and I don't have enough information to really form an opinion on that. I would put it this way: depending on how I feel, I'll either say, "Oh my gosh, we're going in a terrible direction," or, "Oh, isn't this wonderful? We're really making progress. We're on the precipice of something wonderful." So it's too. I know that my judgment is too subjective, really, to be meaningful.
Yeah, and I'm not going to push on.
Oh, go ahead, push.
No, because I love this. I love the story. I love the Christmas story. I love why I love Nancy and Lee Goodman. Reason number 17,423. Christmas Eve, or is it on Christmas Day? Y'all went to Broadview and you brought cookies, and you were feeding cookies to people, and you saw the guards, right? The ones were supposed to be. And you offered them cookies, so talk to me about that whole scenario, about bringing the cookies, about offering it, about how other people reacted, about your response to how other people reacted. Go ahead.
Well, Broadview, for some who may not know, is a ICE facility on the outskirts of Chicago. It's been in the news because they've been using it as a detention center, even though it wasn't built to be one. And it became the focus of many of the demonstrations when the big push for enforcement was brought to our city. So on a daily basis, people were out there demonstrating in various ways. My wife Nancy and I went down with cookies for the guards because we knew probably almost no one else was going to be there on Christmas Day. Because the people who were guarding it weren't ICE, they were the state police, the Illinois State Police, who had been deployed by our governor essentially to make sure that the protesters didn't get hurt, because before that, the ICE and Border Patrol and other folks who were on the federal side had been tear gassing us and roughing people up and the rest of it. So unfortunately, a lot of people who demonstrate at these things see a uniform and they assume they're all together and they're all on the side of ICE. And I don't like that. And I've talked to people about it when I can. And I wanted to make sure that at least the few people we encountered who were there for the benefit of the public, that they understood that some of us appreciated their being there. And they seemed to. They took their cookies.
What kind of cookies?
Nancy makes a really great shortbread cookie. And it keeps well, too.
And what's your response to the people who didn't like what you were doing?
Well, people have different views of demonstrating. There are people who are out there and they shout obscenities all the time. You're not going to find me doing that. I have tried talking to some of these people to convince them of my viewpoint, and that is you get further with people if you address them in a respectful way. You have a chance of making a human connection. But basically, the people who come to scream, and I haven't had much success with that. So typically what will happen is they'll stand where they're standing screaming, and I'll go somewhere else and quietly stand with my sign and do my protest. So my response to them is I respect their judgment. I don't like the way they approach things. And I hope that they'll respect mine also. And I hope that whoever's right, well, I guess I'll hope that the result of all this will be positive.
If it were ICE agents and not state police or county police, would you have shared cookies with them?
Absolutely, because more than anyone else, they need to start seeing us as people.
Oh,
and they have been in. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Say more about that.
Well, they've been indoctrinated, and this is not unusual for any police force or military force. They're indoctrinated to think of people as less than people, other than people, as enemies, as someone who they can push around. I mean, they're given guns, batons, gas, tasers, all kinds of weapons, armor, and the rest of it. They are out there threatening our lives and feeling threatened themselves. And it takes a certain type of indoctrination to get anyone to stand on a battle line or do this kind of work. And unfortunately, the main mode, probably throughout history, but certainly during my lifetime in our country, has been to indoctrinate the people in what's called law enforcement to think that the people who they are encountering are deserving of less than, are not people. And there's been a big push in civilian law enforcement among police departments to de-escalate, to relate to people as members of the community. But that is certainly not the mode that ICE and Border Patrol have been working on recently. So whenever I can, do have those kind of friendly interactions with the Border Patrol agents and the ICE agents and the rest of it. Sometimes we can see each other in what I think is an appropriate way. Most of the time, they're under instruction not to. They're afraid, I think, of relating to me as a person, because they would have to go home at the end of the day if they cracked me over the head, knowing they cracked a person over the head. I think it's easier for them if they cracked someone over the head who wasn't really deserving of anything else.
You think it's also easier for those protesting to belittle and scream as opposed to trying to humanize those with batons?
It could be. I don't know. My perception of the screamers is, by and large, they tend to be younger people, and I get the feeling it's just not quite as developed a mode of doing things. But, so we say that. Let me just add one thing.
Oh.
We're in the midst of what they're calling a war right now. We attacked Venezuela. We attacked Iran. We're dropping bombs on people, usually from airplanes high in the sky. And we're able to do this, I believe, because whoever's dropping these bombs doesn't eat cookies with the people they're killing.
It sounds wrong word, but I'm going to say it. It's innocent. It sounds
I,
so innocent. I was going to say naive, but it sounds so innocent, but it's so basic. It's so Shel Silverstein of you.
I hope so.
So what is the society that you want? What does it look like?
I want it to be not necessarily what I want, because there's a lot of people who need and want something different from what I think they might want. What it would look like to me is less aggressive, less willing to use force and violence, more willing to listen to each other. It's not going to end up where everyone loves me and I love everyone, but at least there have been times in our history where we have been less aggressive. I'd like us to get back to that sort of world.
You wear the triangle a lot.
When I remember, when I go out.
And as we get farther and more into this, it's becoming more, do people notice it more? How are people, it's different than the uniform.
Oh, it's very different from the uniform.
Yeah.
And as a result, it doesn't get noticed nearly as much as the uniform. I kind of have to make an effort to point it out. And I'm not necessarily always wanting to do that if I go out grocery shopping. So basically, they probably see it and think, here's another guy with another button, and don't pay much attention to it.
Is it really just about racism that people don't want migrants here? What do you think? And what led to that question is, as I was listening to your answer, I was thinking about the sign in Northbrook. I don't want to go into details about that, but the reaction to that, which was way over the top, and I know that there is, what do you think the real issue is?
To me, the sign you're referring to, we put up a blue triangle sign in a public forum. They call it a place where the village is established that people can put up whatever signs they want. And some people didn't like it. That I don't think was so much racism in the same way that our immigration policy is formed enormously by racism. So yeah, the first part of that is we're trying to keep people out of this country and throw them out of the country almost entirely because we're racist. And that's how we approach things. I don't think that it's the economic argument. The people who say we do or don't need them to work in the restaurants or the landscaping or whatever else, I think that's kind of an excuse for the racism that underlies it. But the reaction to the triangle was a different and sort of disturbing thing. Is it was a handful, not a large group, a handful of Jewish people who didn't like that anyone was thinking about concentration camps except for Jews in concentration camps. That's so central to their identity that I think they probably at some level figured if that was not all theirs, then there's nothing left of their Judaism. But that's my personal feeling about it.
I still, every so often when I'm up at 3 a.m., I shake my head. It's related, I promise. I shake my head at the fact that we went to Springfield, Ohio. And I shake my head, and you can tell people why we went. I shake my head because the fact that we actually had to go to Springfield, Ohio, because people were believing that migrants were eating dogs and cats, right? I don't know if that's just plain old racism, ignorance, whatever. So react to the fact that we did that. I mean, I don't have words for it. This is going to, right? So, talk about that.
Well, that was very impactful response. You called me up and said, "Do you want to go get some? Was it Haitian food? Is that what we were
Haitian
going
food.
For? Yeah, that was cute. I got a kick out of that. So we went down and we joined in with people from that community who were the victims of a big influx of federal ICE immigration enforcement efforts. And the language that was being used was exactly what you're saying. And how surprising is that? Well, ask any African American in this country about the stereotypes that have applied to that group, and I don't think they're going to be too terribly surprised that dark-skinned people from some other part of the world were being accused of all sorts of horrible things. And when we got there, of course, we found that these folks had been there for years. The community welcomed them. They'd become a vital part of this community's economy, which prior to that had been declining. And they were simply being victimized by some folks from out of town, by the federal government, who found a place to go and rough people up. So it was great that we were there.
It was election fodder. It was election fodder is what it was. It was, right, that then Senator Vance was promoting this idea, and he admitted that he was lying, but he needed to get his message across, so why not? I don't disagree that people will believe it. The absurdity of all of this just makes me want to go, ah!
And did people believe the libels against the Jews in Nazi Germany?
Of course. So do you think what you're doing is making a difference? And does that matter to you?
It makes a difference to me.
Say more.
Well, if I wasn't doing it, I'd know that I wasn't doing it. So at least this way I know I'm not doing much, but I'm doing something. And I can live with that. Does it make a difference to anyone else? It's not that I look at what I'm doing. It's that I look at what all sorts of people are doing in whatever ways they're doing it, that I think is making a difference. I think the national view of migrants and the border and enforcement is changing. Now, it's not changing nearly as fast or as much as I'd like, but if people weren't standing up to the government, if they weren't complaining, the government would be sweeping people out up at a much faster rate, and the president would be taking credit for it, and people like Vance and others would be running on it as a political issue. Well, that's changing, and the only reason I think it's changing is because people are being active, and of course the press is reporting on it, and that's crucial. The role of the press is absolutely important in this stuff.
I want to come back to you had only said it briefly about say more about Witness at the Border and what you guys have been up to.
Well, it started out years ago when a fellow named Josh Rubin went and parked a van outside of the gates at the Tornillo Children's Detention Center, and he lived there for 3 months, and he observed and he gathered information, just as I said we've done down at the Alligator Alcatraz. And a group of people sort of followed in his example, and we got together, and we've done this at a number of different places along the border. Right now, for instance, there's a regular weekly presence outside the Baldwin, Michigan detention camp. There's a weekly presence. Well, there's a presence depending on, it comes and goes. Sometimes people can sustain it every week, sometimes not. But we've got people who have been working at camps all across the country, and it allows us to coordinate. And it's been, I think, a wonderful grassroots effort. There's despite what people like to think, there's no George Soros behind us. It's just people who do what they can, when they can, where they can.
And you've gained traction in certain halls of DC, yes? I mean, people know you.
Well, we got one of the things that basically one of our guys did was he tracked the immigration flights. We used to go down and stand at the airport at 3 a.m. and watch the flights take off and make notes of the tail numbers and count how many people were getting on and off and drag the press down when they would come with us or feed them pictures and stories. And that's how we started.
Where?
Well, we did it at a number of places along the border. Frankly, I don't remember all the towns that we did it at. Certainly down in, I think, El Paso and I think Brownsville for sure. Yeah, I don't remember all the places. So we started, and then there's one of these fellas who works with us, Tom Cartwright, got the idea that he could use these commercial flight trackers to keep track of it. And he started putting together a database which allowed him to give the information to the press nationally and internationally, and that's been very helpful. So yeah, if you Google Witness at the Border, a lot of the references are going to be to our flight tracking, and he's now handed that off to another organization.
Mm. Do you, when you look at Congress, do you see any young or potential, without age, leaders that can really shift the dynamic?
Boy, that would be nice, wouldn't it? On this issue, unfortunately, it's not the big issue. People still look at bread and butter. How is the stock market doing? How is inflation? How is affordability of housing? And then they look at what's really on people's minds. Can I get and afford health insurance and health care? And there's a whole lot of things that are much higher priority in the minds of people and the constituents, and therefore the representatives, than immigration. So I don't really expect very rapid change to come out of Congress. I think it's going to be very gradual. And I am concerned that once the Trump administration is gone or somehow backs off of its aggressive policies, what we'll end up with is the same thing we had under Biden and Obama and others, of border enforcement that still keeps and throws people out for no very good reason, because this has gone on for a very, very long time.
So what's the answer?
The answer is keep on keeping on.
No, but seriously, what's the policy change you want? Open border? Do you want, what do you see as the viable solution?
Personally, I see no reason to enforce borders whatsoever. For a long time, people have come across our border from Mexico, for instance. Some of them settle here, some of them settle here for a while, and they make money and they send it back home. Maybe they go back and forth on Sundays. You got school kids who go across our border from Mexico into the US every day to go to school. You go to a lot of these border towns and you can't, if it weren't for the guards standing there, you wouldn't know that this was a different country. As a matter of fact, some of these places, they speak Spanish to you before they speak English. And everyone got along pretty well. So I don't really see any reason why we have to be keeping people out of our country. We got all the space in the world. We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We've got tremendous capacity in some places and in some occupations that are, we need people. We encourage people to come to this country. It's racism and fear and jealousy and greed that's behind our policy. And none of these, I think, are real good bases for public policy. Yeah, we could open up our border and it wouldn't hurt us.
What about the basic security argument?
Well, I've been an awful lot of people who have come across the border. The pregnant woman who they wouldn't let in, I didn't see was any kind of threat to our country.
No, but there's an argument that there are folks who could be threats trying to come over.
Yeah, but there's at least an equal number or proportion of people who pick up an AR-15 and walk into a school in this country and shoot it up, who were born and raised in this country. The people from anywhere else are no more of a threat than the people here. So why treat them differently?
How does Nancy feel about all this?
You'd have to ask her.
Not about all this with migration. I mean, about you and the work that you're doing.
She shares in the work.
Yeah.
I think I hesitate to speak for anyone but myself, particularly for my wife. But we've been married for a few years now. And,
how many years?
Yeah, a few. And maybe 47. And she's right there with me doing the same thing. I think we pretty much have largely similar views.
I feel like there is something that I haven't asked you yet that I should. What have I missed about this? I know there's something there. It's in the back. It's tickling the back of my head. Where would you like your congregation with this issue right now? What are we doing? What do we need to be doing?
Well, our congregation has been very involved in the issue, and a number of people have gone down to the border and continue to protest, some of them on a weekly basis. So I'm very pleased with that. And I recognize that this is my issue at the moment, but people have got lots and lots of issues. So I'm delighted with the way our particular congregation is approaching all of this. You always want more people to do more things, but I certainly have no criticism. And the congregation has been very supportive of the work that Nancy and I have and others have done on this issue, and that you have done. But we could get back to the question that you were going to answer me about why you do these things.
How can I not? It's that simple. How can I not? And it's not just because I'm the son of a survivor, but that's part of it. It's partly because we're part of a people with a tradition. It's part of just a a sense of what it means to be human. I can't imagine. I can't imagine being a human and turning away from this and not feeling a sense of responsibility and even culpability. I can't understand it. And I can't, as a Jew, I can't be fully Jewish unless I'm on the street to some extent, listening and being. That's it.
Well, that's good.
Lee, what's your next step?
I never know. I'm very much an opportunist. When the weather permits, when there's something to be done, when I don't have other obligations, I try and do what I can. I really don't plan very far ahead. This has been a relatively easy issue because there's been so much going on all over the country. Yeah. I really enjoy getting to I haven't been all over the country. I've been to a few places. I really enjoy being different places because the story out of the press is, of course, there are red states and there are blue states and all this. But every time I go anywhere, I find that there are people on all sides of the issue. There really isn't the divide in what I've found that people want us to believe there is. And that's, to me, very encouraging.
Do you expect to go back down to Alcatraz, Alligator Alcatraz?
You know, it's hard to tell because
Alcatraz that they're trying to reopen. But go ahead.
Well, it is open. I mean, it didn't close, Alligator Alcatraz.
I'm talking the real Alcatraz they're trying to reopen.
Yeah, well, that's another bit of craziness. But for instance, Dilley, it's one of these camps in Texas. It's been all over the news. We thought of going down there, our group. But then there's all sorts of stories that it might close, and you have to follow those stories. We have managed to see places closed. In Homestead, Florida, there was a great, huge tented detention center that we protested outside of, and it closed. The one in Tornillo I spoke of earlier, it closed. Carrizo Springs shut, and it opened and closed. And there have been a number of places all around the country where just in recent weeks, the government has talked about taking warehouses and converting them to camps. And in a number of these places, either a court has said no, or the proposal has been withdrawn or somehow defeated, essentially because of a NIMBY, not in my backyard approach. People don't want these things in their neighborhoods. So I never know where I'll go. The Dilley one is down in population. There were rumors it was going to close, but the most recent information we have is no, it's not closing, and the population will go back up. So it's very hard to plan ahead to know where we need to be. I'm fortunate that I've got good enough health, and I'm in a position right now, being retired, that I can respond fairly rapidly sometimes.
Amen. 2 last questions. Number 1, if you had the opportunity to bring Stephen Miller cookies and sit down and have a conversation with him, what would the conversation be like? What would you say to him?
Stephen, what are you thinking? What's the matter? Why are you so angry? Why are you so cruel? Stephen Miller to me is a puzzle. I don't think it would do any good to try and argue with him. There's the possibility that maybe I could kind of understand him. I suspect he and I will never share cookies.
What's your final word to us?
Great talking with you, Bruce.
Oh, the profundity. Oh, the profundity. No, seriously, what's last thought about all of this?
All of this, let's not lose perspective. If you want to call it the Jewish people, our people, not uniquely, many peoples have been through things, but our people have been around for a while. We've been through a lot of things. We can't ever give up hope. So let's not get too overwhelmed by all of this. Get angry, sure. Get active, but let's not give up.
If people want to get more information about Witness at the Border or about peaceful communities, what should they do?
Just find Witness at the Border or peacefulcommunities.org online. It's simple. Or call me or call you. You'll tell them what to do.
Yeah. Or also to find you on Facebook. People need to find you on Facebook.
Yeah, I just post under my name, Lee Goodman, on Facebook. I post essays when I can.
Lee, I love you. Love you, love you, love you.
Really good talking with you, Bruce. I just, I'm so impressed that you answered my question.
I'm so impressed that you remembered to come back to it and ask it again. And I'm looking forward to many more of these and to more adventures together.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And with that, that's it for this episode. We'll pick it up next time, everyone. Take care.